Shabbat Shalom.
Today we went to Rosh Hashanah Messianic Synagogue in Akron. Where are we?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we say synagogue, what does that mean? Messianic Judaism, they're Jewish, but they believe that the Messiah has already come, the Moshiach. Jesus Christ, Moshiach Yeshua, is God made flesh, came down to earth, died for everyone's sin.
In the beginning
They're
was the
Christian.
Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
It's very interesting because it's Jewish tradition that developed post-Christianity, but that are Christians that take this Jewish culture. We came in early. There's not that many people there, and Rabbi Michael came and talked to us. He was awesome. He had a good personality.
He asked us kind of like what we're doing with the videos, like how we started, how we first got started in our own like personal faith journeys, and just kind of talked for a little bit. He gave us a rundown of some of the language that they would be using.
They speak Hebrew because they actually read the Torah.
Even when speaking in English, they'll be using the Hebrew names for these Bible characters.
For example, Jesus is
Yeshua,
Abraham was,
Abraham,
and then Isaac was.
Yitzhak.
Then he started showing us like art on the walls and stuff, the tree of life, and how it has the Shema.
Shema, Israel, Adonai, Elohanu.
Something. And then he showed us the sanctuary. It's kind of like a Catholic thing. Like it has an altar. It has a tabernacle looking thing, but that's where they store the Torah. Above it, they have Hebrew, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And he said, you see the big letters. First letter of every word has Yod He Vav He, which is the
Tetragrammaton?
Tetragrammaton.
the four letters that spell out the ineffable name of God.
What are you doing?
I'm sitting.
When he was getting crucified, they had that above his cross, and all of the Jews were really mad because it spelled out the name of God. Fun little detail for you.
This service was like 2 hours and 45 minutes long. First off, I'd like to say this. They gave us a freebie. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Rosh Hashanah congregation. It has a picture of like a candelabra, but then on this it has a menorah. It's kind of just about how so clearly in Judaism Jesus Christ is. The one who has been, the one who is, and the one who is to come.
Kind of cool. At the beginning of the service, they had some guys come up with horns, not trumpets or anything. Like they were actual horns, and they were like carved out in the middle. The horns.
That's why they're called horns.
Oh my gosh.
That's why the instrument's called a horn. You're actually really smart, dude.
I know what it's called. It's called a shofar. So they played their shofars.
When it happened, I wanna emphasize this. When it happened, it was loud. I was like,
After that, there's like a prayer maybe, or like a reading.
I think short readings from
Tanakh. Tanakh is the Old Testament, by the way.
and
I think.
the New Testament too.
I don't know, but it wasn't like the main thing.
And then we had some songs.
Worship music, like modern worship music. But then they also had traditional Jewish music with clapping.
So I clapped along.
But it was also in Hebrew, so like I just did.
Yeah. They had the words on the screen though, so I tried saying.
I can kind of
Some
speak
of
it, but I
Fun fact, I don't have a uvula, and apparently that's actually important to be speaking in Hebrew.
That's why you sound so funny all the time.
in most churches the main center reading is a gospel reading, especially like the very high church traditional reverent churches. When it's time for the gospel reading, the priest would come out.
He'd circle around with incense. All the altar boys will kiss the book. He'd start reading from it.
Here, a similar thing happened, but it was with the Torah. This time it was Genesis, and it was about Abraham. They read it in Hebrew, and then Rabbi Michael came up with his sermon. He loves talking about sermons.
Oh, yeah.
He told us before the service even started that today was a good day to come and visit because he was going to be talking a lot about the connections between the Old Testament
And New Testament and the prophecies that were fulfilled.
which really is a huge focus with Messianic Judaism.
He started off by introducing how Abraham first submitted to God, and then God gave him revelation.
Part of receiving revelation is first submitting to God.
So as God reveals things to you, He's not revealing it to you just so that you know. When you receive revelation from God, you become in partnership with Him.
He talked about the angelic visitation of the strangers that come by that are really angels, but also are really God. An icon, I'll show it, of these three angels. They're three, but they're one. They're talked about as one God through these multiple, in a way that God is plural.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
People can say God is only one, God is truly one, but God is not merely anything. God is beyond everything. So of course, by being truly one, He can be vast, vast, vast.
And then after that, it went into how Isaac was God's promise to Abraham. That was fulfilled.
And so you have Isaac, which is the thing that the Lord gifted to him, the promise that the Lord gave him, the thing that Abraham loved the most. And then God tells Abraham to go up onto the mountain, take that promise, bring it up to that mountain and sacrifice it. He went through the scenario as Isaac and Abraham are marching up this mountain. Because Isaac, he was like 34. He wasn't like oblivious to what was going on. And he could have easily fought back. Isaac's like, bind me tight so that in the moment, like, I don't blemish the sacrifice. I think that's Talmudic tradition. I'll get into that later. So Abraham's gonna sacrifice his son right before the Lord, he gives him the goat that was stuck in the brush, and they sacrifice that in place of Isaac. It's more of a ram, I'd say. Which, is that a type of goat or is that a type of sheep? He didn't even get into this, but I heard this and I know this. It's all typology. That's something I love. Stuck in the bush. He was stuck in thorns. Thorns wrapped around his head, wrapped around his feet. He was pierced by these thorns. And that's the sacrifice. The ram, really, but it's just like a foreshadowing of thorns wrapped around the head of the lamb that will be sacrificed. And Isaac was going up the mountain, and he was carrying the logs on the back. He was carrying the thing that he was going to be sacrificed, the piece of wood that he was going to be sacrificed on his back up the mountain. Who does that remind you of? Jesus!
Okay, so what typology is that's a huge thing in theology.
Where an Old Testament type, like something that happens in the Old Testament that is fulfilled or renewed in the New Testament.
For example, the Ark of the Covenant to Mary, carrying God in her womb.
David is a type to Jesus, as in from the house of David, from God's own heart.
There's a lot of types of Jesus. Melchizedek, the priest of an unknown nation, really. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't like Israelite. He wasn't like the same people as Abraham, but he was a priest king that worshiped the true God. Priest king is Jesus. Jesus is the high priest, the king, and the perfect prophet, a type into the New Testament. That's what this is really about. That's why I really find it so interesting.
The Old Testament is beautiful. The whole thing is a prophecy into what is to come with Jesus. I realize how similar Catholicism is to Judaism in a way that, like, evangelical Protestantism isn't. They're both Christianity, but Catholicism has an altar. It has that big tabernacle. We keep in the host. They keep in the law, the Torah.
He said, I don't know what it's like in Catholicism, but we have these readings, a cycle throughout the years. We have that, the Catholic lectionary, and it has specific things that pairs old and new stuff together.
He also talked about intercession, not in a saintly sense, but in a sense of praying. Abraham was praying for Sodom. God planned to smite Sodom. Abraham was saying, no, please, God, listen. And God is not going to be like, no, my will is my will. God's will is his will, but he's listening to these people.
There's so much with the Old Covenant to have the bread of the true presence. It's like a reminder of God's true presence. Within the New Covenant, it's like God is saying, Jesus, Yeshua is saying, this is my body and this is my blood with the wine and the bread. Whoever does not eat my flesh and drink my blood does not have life in him. John 6:16.
Do the Messianic Jewish people have communion?
Short answer, yes. Most Messianic Jewish congregations do celebrate communion, though the terminology and style vary. Messianic Jews typically practice something equivalent to communion, but they usually call it the Lord's Supper, Yeshua's memorial. It's often placed in a Passover Seder context or framed through Jewish liturgical elements. They usually use challah or matzah and wine grape juice, similar to Christian practice. The symbolism is the same, remembering the body and blood of Yeshua, Jesus. Some do it weekly, many do it monthly, some only at Passover, emphasizing its Jewish roots.
I've been knowing this for so long, and it's one of my favorite facts ever, and I don't ever talk about it, and now I get to talk about it on this. In Hebrew, the name for the holiday of Passover is Pesach, and it's God passing over, bearing the lives of the houses that rub the unblemished lamb's blood on the doorpost. Easter, we call it Easter in English because of Germanic roots of the month, but originally, and still now, in different, depending on what language it is, in Spanish and Greek and Latin, in Italian, it's pretty much only English and like German calls it Easter. But the actual name, the Greek name's Pascha, coming from the Hebrew Pesach. Pesach and Pascha, they're the same holiday. They're recognized to be the same holiday. Jesus just fulfills it and makes it truly about the unblemished Lamb, Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God. His blood bleeding out onto the world, curing everyone, saving everyone from hell. This is like, it's insane.
We never even got into the history of this. This is a relatively new thing.
Modern Messianic Judaism didn't grow organically out of traditional Jewish movements. It was shaped mostly by evangelical Protestant outreach in the 19th and especially the 20th century. Evangelical missions to the Jewish people encouraged converts to keep some Jewish identity instead of fully joining Gentile churches. That idea took off in the 1960s and 70s during the Jesus movement in the U.S., when some Jewish converts began forming their own congregations that blended Jewish symbols, holidays, and worship styles with evangelical Christian theology. When these congregations incorporated Jewish tradition, it was almost always post-biblical, Talmudic, and later rabbinic tradition, things that became part of mainstream Judaism centuries after Jesus, not practices from the early church or Second Temple Judaism. So the movement used Jewish ritual forms while staying rooted in Christian theology.
Brought up the Talmud. The Talmud was written by people who did not believe Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ came and talked to the Pharisees, pointing out all their hypocrisy, and he said,
"You brood of vipers! How will you escape being condemned to hell?"
Certainly Judaism is Old Covenant, the tradition that the real God brought to people that spawned from God's relationship with the Israelites, the Hebrews. But the Pharisees Jesus had issues with
After Jesus died and rose and the apostles went out, the Pharisees are the ones who kept the Jewish tradition going in their own way that Jesus was pointing out this is not the best thing to do. That tradition from the Pharisees is where the rabbis of the Talmud come from.
And there is a verse, it says the name Yeshua is in hell, boiling in his own excrement. They are clearly disrespecting the God that they claim to praise.
Basically, Messianic Judaism retains the tradition of rabbinical Judaism, which stems from the Pharisaic tradition, i.e., what Jesus was vocal against. Although, it is important to state that Messianic Jews do not hold Talmudic tradition to any higher standard than mere insight, and in fact, are vehemently against any attacks on Jesus that might be found in Talmudic writings.
Obviously, I was just praising it for so long. There's that little nip.
It's weird sometimes. My final thoughts. I would like to say that the sermon, I really liked all of the connections that were made in it, and I don't know that if I were to go to any other church, it would have had that strong of a focus on a topic like that. So, I really liked it. My main takeaway, obviously, is Jesus was a Jew. Jesus didn't go to church, he went to a synagogue. Even on their website, they say that if you are a Gentile that is like a believer in Jesus, you enter into the covenant of his blood, meaning making you blood family, basically. Blood family with a Jew makes you a Jew. It's not a matter of like, this is right and Christianity is wrong. It's just making a claim. That's what I like.
I don't know where we go. The next place we go will be a surprise.
Ooh.
Say goodbye, Ben.
See ya. Later.